My next talk, it's sort of a chance for me to kind of give a talk here. And as I said at the beginning of the panel, I don't know anything about technology. And I kind of want to be provocative and throw out there that I'm not sure that you build cities by building technology. I actually think you build cities by building in the principles of things like diversity and inclusion and engagement. So this isn't going to be a talk so much about any kind of technology. I actually want to throw it back to every single one of you. It's about everybody in your seat and what do you take away, and at the surrounding all of this stuff today, and I would argue I've talked quite a bit at Smart Cities events, it's leadership and governance. And that means every single person here. See, I sit up in the back and I watch all these presentations, and it kind of feels like I'm up there and the experts are down here. Well, I actually think the experts, when you go home next week, it's you who are going to take all of this stuff forward. So at the bottom of it, it's all about leadership. And that's really what I want to change kind of this focus on you. So let me talk a little bit about leadership. I think traditionally, in cities, and this is a city focus, we kind of think of leaders as someone who scores the most goals, or sells the most cars, or has the highest position. That's not the kind of leadership that we're talking about in cities anymore. We're talking about a flat leadership. City building is now the function of people who can bring together very interdisciplinary teams and facilitate. It's not the top-down. When I talk about management now, I have a very sophisticated tool that I use for management. It's called MBWA. Very complicated. Usually only used in PhD seminars. It's called management by walking around. That's how we build teams of people in a flat system. So that's about leadership and governance. Leadership starts with you. And I sometimes feel that I sound like a bit of a Sunday morning evangelical sort of person, proselytizing. But leadership starts with you when you go home. You gotta have some motivation. Leadership is also about change, and that seems so obvious. But everybody hates change. I hate change. I don't like when things are different. I like predictability. I want to know what's going to happen. There's no predictability at all in cities and governance and management anymore. Right? Our attention span may be about 5 minutes, it seems, if you're a politician. So leadership is about having energy. It's about creating a positive experience. And there are about 4 or 5 factors that I've kind of written down that really, I think, should drive you as you go home next week and start to build on what you've heard. First is, and some of this may sound so obvious, but it's only obvious when someone else says it. Know yourself and figure out what motivates you and what drives you every single day. Secondly, find your own vision and your passion. And I've been in city planning long enough that I think now we often laugh at the words called vision and passion. You know, I teach a lot of students all the time, and when I see a presentation, you know what the students stand up in the presentation, they say, well, the data says, and I say, I don't care what the data says. Tell me what you think. There's dead silence. Well, the data says, I don't care what the data says. What's your gut? What's your intuition? What do you feel? What do you think? Take a risk. What's your passion? And when I say take a risk, I'm not silly about that. But in city building, we got to try and we got to take risks to do different things. Let me give you just some practical examples. I run marathons. I'm old. I'm slow. When I go to the starting line of a marathon, my risk isn't knowing that I'll run 3:30. It's knowing that, my God, am I going to finish this one? The hardest thing is getting to the starting line. All I got to do is run 42K after that. So take risks. Don't worry about looking foolish in putting some of these ideas out there. How many of you have ever been in a meeting, 6 or 7 people, and someone asks, what does someone think? Well, in Canada, we're very polite there. Usually we say sorry, okay? In a meeting where I'm at, most people look down at their shoes, look away. Nobody wants to offer up what they think. And then some brave soul puts up her hand and says an answer, and the chair says, great answer. And you're thinking, damn, that's what I wanted to say. But you're too scared to take that chance, to take that risk. Put it out there. Be vulnerable. Trust your gut and your intuition. Don't be afraid. One of the hardest things I ever did was run for city politics. And in a two-person race, when you come second, it's not quite as good. But the hardest thing I had to do was to stand at the top of a street and start to walk down the street and knock on doors. I would rather speak in front of 2,000 or 3,000 people any day, but to expose myself and to put myself out there and say what I felt, say what I believed, okay? So I trusted myself. I took a chance. Another factor around communicating around leadership is knowing how to communicate. You got to know how to talk. You got to know how to communicate in multiple ways. And I want to say, I have a career of teaching. I don't think we teach communication very well. That's what leadership is. Leadership is learning how to do that. Leadership is also something called giving power away. And let me tell you what I did a lot of work in South Africa. And I remember the deputy mayor in a city called East London called me in one day. We were this was in the post-apartheid regime, and we were developing new systems of local government. And he said, you know, when you go out to the townships, you get power by giving it away. You don't pyramid it. So to me, this technology, as I said at the beginning, and all the smart cities is not about pyramiding power and ownership and control. It's about giving it away so that, in fact, everybody has access, has control. And that's how you broaden the base and you make better decisions and people buy in, and that's how you make change. That's called strategic planning. It's pretty obvious when you say it, but you got to be prepared to risk, to give it up, to make that change. I would also say something we don't do is we don't check our results very often. And I'm not talking about the yearly job review. You got to check your results. How are we doing? What can we do better? Nice phrase that I learned was, we need to practice the art of acknowledgement. You need to say thank you. That sounds so silly. Thanks for bothering. It's as simple as you got to bother. Few final comments. What makes a good leader? As I said earlier, slightly differently now, challenge the process. I think you got two choices. You can go home after this presentation, after tonight. You can turn on the television. You can watch the news. Probably the sun will come up tomorrow and it'll be an okay day somewhere. Yep, that's one way. The other way is to say, I want to bother and I'm going to make a difference, and that's what leadership is. Like, if you don't do it, who the heck will? That's what we're looking for in building cities. Secondly, you inspire a shared vision. You enlist others. You bring people along. That's, to me, what education is about. It's not, I remember when I finished my last degree, I sat down at the dinner table with my mom. She said, don't think you're going to use any fancy words around this table. I just want to tell you one thing. I changed your diapers. It brought it down to, make it simple. Bring others along. Enable others to act. Strengthen others. You lead by example. You don't kind of ask somebody else to be the leader. And it doesn't mean you're going to rush out, off the cliff and here we go. You lead by example. You lead by what you do. You celebrate accomplishments. The final thing I would say is that cities are fragile. Colleague Jane Jacobs would say that. And in doing that, I want to leave you with one challenge. And this is a challenge that you take home. There's a parade going on out there. There are leaders in that parade, there are followers, and there are observers. Some people don't even know what's going on. That parade is your life. What role do you want to play? Make a difference. I challenge you. You got to bother. Thank you.